on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy BT, and today we are here with the wheels for this Honda GROM. We're going to go into part 2 of this setup. All right, so here are the wheels that we have been working on. They're still looking as good as can be. So we got some rotors in, and one thing to notice here as I inspected this a little closer after finishing up the first time is that the stock rotors will not fit on this setup, so you're going to have to make sure that you get yourself the appropriate rotor setup. We do have some Honda parts here, so I did go ahead and get an extra damper set here. So these are brand new. I went ahead and got this piece right here, this sleeve. So that's brand new. We're going to use this here. We've got some thread locker, and we've got a bunch of bolts here. So here are the bolts here. We have 8 of these. So now we are ready to start the assembly process of getting these rotors fitted to these wheels. All right, so here we have the front setup. So with these screws right here, these will take a 6mm. And what you're gonna notice is that when you get these screws and you start screwing them in, it's gonna feel a little tight. It's actually okay. Just go ahead, keep screwing. It'll fit just fine. You're not going to cross thread anything. So here we have, this is our front rotor. Look at how good this looks. Look at this. This looks amazing. All right. So here's our front rotor. All we have to do is set it in place, align the holes, and go ahead and get your screws put in place. Now, these bolts do come with a little bit of locker on them, but since I've already put in this bolt and taken it out, I'm going to go ahead and wet this one. But I believe right out the bag here, fresh out the bag, you'll see that they are already outfitted with some locker on there, so you don't really need to add any additional product while installing these. So all we're going to do here is we're going to get 4 of these out, get these set in place, and then lock them down. Now before I lock this in place, you'll notice here that on the actual product it will show you an arrow of which direction that the rotor is supposed to rotate. So be mindful that you're paying attention to that. But we do know this here, this is our front wheel, and it's going to rotate in this direction on the right side of the bike. Let's go ahead and get this in place. Now that first bolt went in pretty easily because that was the one I initially threaded. These ones are all fresh and have not been formally threaded, so it'll take a little bit of muscle to get those in there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move over to the rear now. So same deal here. Take out your part, get it on here, and align it to the holes appropriately. And then screw it in place. So on the back side, this is where the damper is going to go. Go ahead and open that up. There's a part number there. But all we do, get our dampers out, and we just place them right in here like so. And with the dampers in place, that's when we get the sleeve. There's a part number there. We take this sleeve here, we place it right inside of there like so, and then this will then sit right in here. So now we are ready. Yeah, that's all that's needed. Everything else is just putting it onto the bike now. So we've got everything in place. These are the spacers for the front. I believe the wider one goes on the left side. This one goes in the right side, and I believe this sits right on top of here. And we're ready for assembly. So you can see what's involved with getting this set up. Not dreadfully difficult, but yeah, everything's looking good. Parts are fitting nicely together. Really good build quality parts here, so I can't really complain at all. Everything's looking good. So now we're ready to actually get these installed on the bike. All right, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start with removing this rear axle. Okay, and then we're gonna have to loosen our chain adjusters. Now what we need to do is loosen the chain. And with the chain loose, we're gonna pull out our axle. And then get this wheel out of here. Okay, so we got our wheel out. Okay, we know where that goes. Both sides. So then we can take this out here. Now, since we had our TST rear sprocket here, we're gonna have to take this off and swap it over here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get the TST swapped over to the new wheel. All right, so everything is all set to go now. As you can see, this is a lot wider setup than before. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna need to take off this plastic cover here. So we're gonna go ahead and get this 5mm, and we're going to take this off of the frame. And the last screw happens to be right behind the exhaust. All right, so to get to the last screw, we're gonna have to loosen the exhaust hair. So on this Yoshimura exhaust, we're gonna have to release one of these springs in order to be able to remove this exhaust here to get out of the way. So now if you know you're going to do this in the future, just go ahead and take this off whenever you do this job with the changing of the exhaust. So now you know, make it a little easier for yourself to get to this little screw right here. And that's it to remove this. Alright, so then we're just going to get this exhaust put back on here and continue with the job. Alright, so now we can go back to the assembly here. So we're going to take this piece here. It's going to go on this side right here. Then we're going to take the larger of the two of these, and this came from the left side, and we're going to put this on the right side. And then we should be able to slide our axle through. So this will go in here like so. But before we do that, we're going to have to get everything fitted in place here. All right, so here is my wheel setup. One of the issues I came across when setting this up was that I noticed that the bolts that I got with this set were a bit too tall, so I'm not going to be able to get the clearance that I need. So I went ahead and I got some different options. So if you can see here, the original option is pretty tall. So I got a couple different options here. We have a regular bolt here, and then we have some hex keys here. As you can see, this is very tall. This is a very tall bolt. So I got some different options to try to determine which one was going to work best for this application. So as you can see here, this one is definitely not going to be an option here. So we're going to go ahead and take this one out. And that Loctite on there, it really does work. All right, so for this next option here, we're going to take this one out as well. And then this one sits a little tall. We're going to take this one out too. So the option that I think works the best is going to be this guy right here. Now, I did buy a couple of these. I'll show you the actual sizes of these in a second, but here is one set. We're not going to do this one. This is the set that we're actually going to use here. I did buy these as well. These ones didn't work out too good, and they look a little too short as well. And then this was the other option here. So the majority of these were a let's see, the one I chose, this one was a 10 by 16. The other options I looked at, this was a 10 by 20, this was a 10 by 16, and this one was a 10 by 20. But again, looking for the lowest profile that we can get for this application, we're going to go with these guys right here. I bought this from bellmetric.com. There is the information for that. So we're going to go ahead and get some Loctite on these, get those set in place, and continue with the installation. All right, so since now we have addressed the clearance issue that we were having, we're going to go ahead and try to get everything put in place here. So what I've done is I've loosened this here. Not quite sure if I will be able to get this to go on appropriately. But we do have the two pieces we need here. We have the slimmer one, which is going to go on the left side. And this came from the stock wheel. This is the larger one from the rear. It's going to go down here in this section. So what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to get this fitted on here. See if we can get it to sit in place properly. I'm going to go ahead and get myself a prop to help with the process of getting that wheel installed. All right, so we have to get this fitted inside here while also considering the rotor as well. Not quite sure this is going to work out that way, but we also have to make sure we keep this on the other side, getting ready to insert the long bolt in to get everything seated. So here we go. So my guess is that we're probably going to have to put some pressure on each side and really force it to open up a little bit more. And that should give us enough space to work. So for now, I'm going to have to take this off, pull the wheel back out, and try this again. All right, so it looks like I'm going to have to get a bottle jack. I want to get something that's shorter than 9 inches, so probably like 7 inches and change. So we're going to go ahead and get a bottle jack so we can put some tension on this and widen it up a bit. All right, so here's the bottle jack we picked up. It's a 2-ton jack. It should fit within that space that was measured here. So let's go ahead and open this thing up and see if we can get this frame to spread open a bit. All right, so pretty simple setup. You take this piece of your bar here. There's a piece that's kind of squished. There's a circular piece. You insert that piece into this section here. You take this piece, you put it in here, put this in here, and then you are able to pump. So what we're going to do, we're going to take some pieces of wood here. We're going to kind of use those as support in between the frame. But we're going to go ahead and get this thing set up and see if we can't get some motion on this frame. All right, we got a little bit of spread there. We're going to go ahead and get our setup on this side again to see if we can't get everything to align here. So this is the section right here that we're dealing with. You can see how close that is. It needs to clear, man, I don't know how much that is. It just needs to clear that right there, which is the spacer, and then we'd be good to go. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can't get this thing in here. So considering the fact that this is not clearing as we'd like, we really don't have much space to work with to put on this rotor. So also not forgetting that this rotor needs to be also placed in the correct position. So yeah, as you can see, this is a bit of stuff to coordinate through here to make work. It's like you have to get the rotor in slightly, and then that way you can slide this in this section here, in which it's a very, very tight space to work with here. All right, so to get this out, I just gave it a gentle tap on the floor, kind of loosen this, and then I was able to take this out. So now all we have to do is reassemble these components onto this bracket. Make sure you got the right orientation. So we're gonna get this fitted into this hole here. All right, all I did was tap that in using the floor. So now that's in place. This screw will go back on here. But before we put that in place, put a little Loctite on this. Go ahead and we'll lock this down. All right, so that's in place. All right, next thing we have here, we need to remove this little bracket. Okay, so there's definitely some material in there. Just be careful taking that out. I'm gonna put mine back in place. All right, so with that, we're gonna snap that right there where it belongs. Okay, and then we are basically ready to reinstall this guy right in here. Got everything aligned there. And we're gonna screw this back in place. And also put a little Loctite on that before we lock it up. All right, everything looks good. The bracket is ready to go. Hopefully that gives us enough space to get this in here, make it all fit together. Here's the new spacer. See, they're very close in size, but this should be better. All right, let's see if we can make it all fit together. What I'm gonna have to do is we're gonna have to put this rotor in after the fact, but what I'll do is get this thing situated like so, but it's definitely a lot easier than before. Get this situated so that I can get this bracket set in place. Once I get that locked and loaded in place there, then what I can do is I can slide up my rotor, get my rotor into the right spot. Oh, this is finally coming together, folks. Put my Loctite on it, get it in place, and hopefully I can find a spot to tighten these. But it looks like we're gonna be able to get this in here. So then I'm gonna go ahead and get this wheel finally aligned here. Boom! It's finally done. And then this is what we will lock in place after we get the chain adjusted. But boy, little casualties along the way here on this frame, but it's looking good. So as you can see here, the process was to get the wheel in place. You can't put it on with the rotor, so you kind of wedge everything in place before you slide through this axle here. You go ahead and you get this set in place, then you go ahead and set the rotor in place, and then you're good to go. So now we'll just have to button up these screws after the fact. But as you can see, the back wheel is finally on its way to being installed. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get our chain on. All right, so we're going to go ahead and torque down this rear wheel, and the torque spec for this is 39.9 foot-pounds. All right, so for the fronts, it's also a 14 and a 19. So we're going to go ahead and get this loosened. All right, now that we've got that loosened, I believe we're gonna have to take off this cover here. These are 5mm. And we're gonna go ahead and also take off these reflectors. These are a 10mm. once you screw out this last component here, everything comes out. So to put these in a safe spot, I'm just going to reattach these to the lights here and put them in a safe spot. So now we should be able to take this off. Okay, and now we can work on getting this out. There is a spot on the rotor that will have to be grinded down. So we got everything shaved down there. Now we got our appropriate spacers for the install. I believe the short one is probably going to go right here on the left side, the long one on the right. So we'll put those there. And based off of just trying to get this thing in place, I think we're probably going to have to do the same ordeal with the rotor to here, unless we can get it to slide in, but I doubt it's going to do that based off of the angle of everything here. So let's just go ahead, save ourselves the trouble, unscrew these rotors now, and then finish off the job. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, kind of get this in between the wheel here. Then we're gonna slide in the rotor, get that rotor hopefully nice and easy in there. Then we're gonna have to try to get this set here onto the wheel. All right, so gonna get a little bit of Loctite on my bolt here. What we're gonna do is kind of wedge this in here, get that in place, and then we're gonna have to kind of work it in here. Work it in. Okay, there we go. So we got one in place there. We'll go ahead and see if we can get this to catch. Okay, so we got that. Now what we need to do is basically get ready to work this back in here. So let's get our axle in place. Axle's in place there. So now we just need to get everything set and slide through there. So as I lift this thing, hopefully I can get it to align and then slide that in place. All right, so we're getting it through there. Now we just have to get our last spacer in place, and we should be able to make this thing work. Okay, this thing takes quite the coordination to get everything in place here, but we're gonna get this thing. We're gonna get it. All right, so once you get the rotor set, you don't want it to fall down anymore. So we're gonna go ahead and just throw a bolt right there so that it doesn't drop down. Because once it drops down, it falls in the way of the spacer sliding through. All right, so now that we have the spacer where it needs to be, I can go ahead, now and lift up the rest of this and hopefully align everything here to pass through to the other side. And voila, we have succeeded with the pass through there. So now, like the other side, all we're gonna have to do is button up our rotor here. All right, so now all we need to do is torque down our fronts here. All right, so we're dealing with the same torque specs as the rear, which is 39.9 foot-pounds. We're gonna go ahead and get this dialed in here. And that should be good to go there. Looks like it's clearing just fine. Then we'll go ahead, we'll get this back in place. And then we'll be done. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the finished Grom with the new Ruck Shop rims, baby. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. Hopefully you've been able to enjoy the build of this Grom with these beautiful new wheels from the Ruck Shop. We did learn a lot in the process as to what's involved, but one of the main things that's noted here is, yeah, the parts that you need. Make sure you got everything up front. We did get a new hub carrier that came with the spacer that was needed for that side. But this was the big thing right here. Getting this bracket right here really simplified the rest of the install without having to modify the stock bracket. And based off of this setup here, this is the, I think this is the FLP hub set. We've got the rotors here. And then the front went a little smoother. Just make sure you got something to hold the bike up at a good spot so you can actually work on it. But this went in a lot easier. All we had to do was grind down a little spot inside. But the install is completed. I can't wait to continue with the build on this thing because there's still a lot more work to be done. It's your boy BT. Thank you for checking out this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.